Hi, this is Tristan Lauber. I'm a concert pianist. I have a website, tristanlauber.com, and you're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles.
You're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles, and I'm Frank because I have to be. In studio today we have a concert pianist, Mr. Tristan Lauber. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. And you?
I'm doing great, and he's here today to share a little bit about the lifestyle of a concert pianist. All right, let's go right into the interview. Let's start off with where you were born, and tell me a little bit about the education you went through to become a concert pianist.
I was born in Montreal, born and raised. My parents are not from here. My father's Vietnamese, my mother's Swiss. They met in Switzerland many years ago, and moved to Montreal, where I was born, and I discovered music at a relatively late age for most concert pianists. I was about, 7 or 8 when I discovered music, but only 9 when I started taking my first lessons, 9 or 10. And I made my way through a high school that had a music program, and then Cégep, where I studied Marianopolis, followed by a bachelor at McGill University, and then a master's and a doctorate from the University of Montreal. And that's in a nutshell, more or less, how I started out.
Now, you mentioned that your parents, one was Vietnamese, one was from Switzerland. Do you believe that the coming together of two different cultures plays a factor in your decision to be a concert pianist?
In an indirect way. My mother, being European, was educated to appreciate European music, which is what I play. She herself is a composer. She played piano, not professionally, but well enough that I could listen to her and be inspired. My father, being Asian and Vietnamese particularly, was trained on American blues and rock and roll, because back in those days it was very popular for young Vietnamese men to learn how to play electric guitar. So that's what my father did. He played electric guitar, and that's actually how my mother met him. He was playing in a rock band. And though in the past I had sort of assumed that my desire to play classical music or, to go into music came from my mother, I've recently come to realize that it really is a combination from both my parents, in the sense that I may play the music that my mother grew up on, but the desire to be on stage in front of a lot of people, the showmanship that a concert pianist definitely has to hone and develop, that really comes from my father, because even as an adult, even though he never made a career of playing electric guitar, as an amateur, he was pretty damn good, and he would actually, every once in a while, put bands together with his colleagues from work and put on shows for the Vietnamese New Year, where he'd perform the 70s and 80s rock and roll hits in front of an audience of 2,000 Vietnamese, and he would do this without breaking a sweat. So I would say that, that is how indirectly those two cultures blended together to give me, to contribute to making me who I am and doing what I do.
Now let's talk about the fact that both your parents were musicians. Do you think that adds to your capability to perform as a musician, or do you think that even someone whose parents weren't musicians could achieve the same level that you're enjoying now?
Yeah, I teach a lot. I teach for many years, so I see both kinds. If you have parents who are musicians or musically inclined, it helps, because you're exposed to music at a young age, and you can also have parents who, parents who sit down next to you at the piano, on the piano bench, and guide you through your practices. I see that with some of my students whose parents are musically inclined or have played an instrument. But I also have students whose parents can't tell a piano from a banjo. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but they really have no musical talent, but they are extremely supportive and appreciative of their children's talent, and it works out very well. The kids will find models and inspiration from either older musicians, older students, or from famous pianists that they hear, or record CDs. It's definitely not necessary to have parents who are musically inclined or who play an instrument, but it helps.
You also mentioned that you started very late for a concert pianist. You mentioned the ages 7 to 9. Why is age 7 to 9 considered late?
Yeah, I know. For people who aren't musicians, it might seem surprising. Most concert pianists who've got careers, big, major careers, you'll hear stories of how they were at the piano at the age of 3 years old, banging out tunes perfectly, and learning their first Beethoven sonata by the age of 8 or 9. And I would say it's probably true for the vast majority of them. I started later just because I was exposed to music later, and I just developed a taste for it later than most kids. And so everything in my life and career has taken more time. I'm only now starting to enjoy the kind of success that I had hoped to enjoy many, many years ago, because I've made choices in my life to take time to build as solid a foundation as I can, as I believe is necessary, because I've seen too many careers burn out quickly because the musician went up too far too fast and crashed, either emotionally, pianistically, or physically. Didn't want to go through that myself, so I took the time that I realized I needed. And the other reason is I very much believe in karma, and I believe that everybody's path is different. And I've come to accept the fact that my path is slower, but has had its advantages as well, because since it's taking me longer to achieve a certain level of success and technical or pianistic proficiency, I've had to work very hard since I wasn't somebody that was extremely talented. I wasn't a prodigy. I've had to work out pianistic problems through a very painstaking and slow process. But this allows me to teach what it is that I have taught myself and help young kids become very, very good pianists. I now have quite a few excellent students. And to be both able to play the instrument and to teach it, those are two very, very different skills. And it's not always easy to do both well, definitely. So it's been something that I've wanted to do for many years, to be able to play as well as possible and also teach at as high a level as possible.
You had just mentioned that you're taking a slower approach. It's taking a bit longer for you. What is it like for you when you see other people moving